Hi, everybody. Welcome to Office Hours. If this is their first time, welcome. We're glad to have you here. There's a couple things that you'll notice here as to kind of orient you. You'll notice that you're probably, if this is your first time, you're coming in as a participant. That's perfect. If you'll notice, it's a bunch of other people that are here as panelists, and the only thing different between them and you is that they showed up early. We actually open at 6 a.m. On the dot. So you can come at 6 and we start chit-chatting. It's a pretty loose conversation. Sometimes we work on technical issues for people and we kind of work out a lot of the details and chit-chat. At 6:30, we distribute the Discord link. There's about 400 people in Discord, or almost 400 people in Discord. So if you want to join, come back tomorrow at 6:30 and you can get the link. It expires at 7. So if once I'm talking about it, it's too late. And then at 6:40 is when we start doing mic checks for the show. So if you're not here by 6:40, you don't need to raise your hand to join. And the note is that if you want to join before 6:40, is you raise your Zoom hand before 6:40, and we'll bring you in. Our only request is that you make sure that you've got good video, good audio, and good internet before you jump in. So kind of take a look at it. The mic checks that you see us do at the beginning, if you come a little early, is kind of a preview to what we hope to get as far as quality goes as we start to tighten all these things up. So those are the things to think about. If you want to ask questions, use the Q&A. If you want to chat, use the chat. Don't use the Q&A for chat. Don't use the chat for questions. If you're asking questions in the chat, it means that you want people in the chat to respond to it, not our discussion. And then Q&A is directed specifically for us to possibly talk about. If you see questions in the Q&A that you like, please vote them up. It really helps us figure out what everybody, or a majority wants to, or not a majority, a significant minority wants us to talk about. So we do prioritize answering the questions based on the voting. So go into the Q&A and take a look at that. So that's the best way for you to kind of interact. If you're new to being a panelist, please don't touch any of the questions in the Q&A. If you start adjusting them or responding to them, it makes it much harder on our end to manage those questions. So don't touch the Q&A questions if you're a panelist. We're really, if we get to the end and we run out of questions in the Q&A area, we will move to seeing if there's any other questions in the panelists. But generally, we're not going to take new questions in the panel unless we're out of ones that are in the Q&A box. If you come in here and you want to ask a question and you want to be on the panel, you need to ask the question before you join the panel. That's the key to the operation. Is throw it into the box, and then you can and then that'll work. Now we've got a lot of stuff coming up this week. Today, Brian Maddox is going to talk about Unity Connect. So Unity Connect is a way to do kind of a lot of remote audio. And so Brian's been experimenting with it and music and so on and so forth. This is kind of building towards next week when a bunch of folks are going to be talking about actual collaboration on video. Tomorrow, there's a launch. I don't know if you guys have heard, but there's a launch that might, if it doesn't rain out, there'll be a launch. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring some of the guys in from Flightline who actually film launches, and they're going to answer your questions about what it takes to actually film a rocket launch. So wireless cameras and telescopes and all kinds of other fun stuff. So they're going to be here tomorrow. Thursday, we're going to talk about wiring diagrams. So we're going to talk about how we approach them, why we do them. We're going to hopefully compare and contrast a couple of other people's wiring diagrams. I'll show a couple of mine, and we'll go from there. And then on Friday, and again, Thursday, we also have a bonus hour of 9 to 10, where Oliver Breidenbach is going to actually show some examples of some stuff from Immo Live that some of you might be interested in. So 9 to 10 on Thursday, there'll be another hour, a third hour that we're kind of experimenting with. Then Friday, our second hour will be vMix with Leeland Best. So he's going to give us a tour of vMix, which we're pretty excited about. Then on Saturday, we have 2 hours of Q&A. And again, if you're new, there's always Q&A from 7 to 8. These, what I just announced, are 8 to 9. Those are the extra hours, the second hours. On Saturday, we have office hour. We have the Q&A for 2 hours, 7 to 9. And then Nick Justin is going to talk about Unreal Engine tips and tricks. Steve Bays, former senior product manager for Final Cut, is going to be talking about Final Cut. So giving you tips and tricks you probably didn't know. Now, I'll be talking about building graphics for live events. So last week I talked about countdown clocks. This week, I'll be talking about super sources, how to build graphics for super sources. And then Aaron Mailer will be back at noon to talk about networking issues. We had a lot of people that want to learn a little bit more about how their network works because it affects a lot of us in production. So Aaron's going to be back and talking about that. So, and finally, if you're interested in sharing this, you can. I put in a link. That's the link to share with other folks. So if you think this is good, we're trying to figure out what happens to it after quarantine, and we're trying to see how big we can make it. So if you think this is something worth watching, share it with your friends or anywhere else you feel like sharing it. So we'd love to have more people like the people who are showing up right now. Anyway, so let's move on to questions. Chris, what do we got?
Yeah, the first question at the beginning of the hour, you were showing off a screen called Manycams of some utility, and the audience is interested in what it is, how you're using it. Is it in your signal flow?
I was not, yeah. So I was talking about Manycam, but I was actually showing off a hardware switcher. So what Manycam is a virtual camera plugin and a little switcher that you can get that's cross-platform that'll act as a virtual camera, so you can have multiple inputs. You can have USB inputs, regular camera inputs if you have the interface for it, and you can put graphics in there. And so it's a relatively inexpensive way to throw graphics in. The one that I use mostly when I'm using a virtual camera on the Mac is I use Memo Live for, that's one of the big uses I have for Memo Live. So it's Manycam's kind of a smaller, more austere version of what Memo Live does, which is a lot more. You can also use Wirecast, OBS. There's a bunch, vMix, all have their own virtual cameras. So the idea is hopefully they show up as a camera for Zoom and other services. Those are, and they act as software switchers. What I was showing earlier is a hardware switcher. So what I have is I'm using an ATEM switcher here, and that's doing a couple things. One is it's doing doing my key. I don't know if I can, this is, if you're new here, this is my, so I'm in front of green, and so it's doing the key for me, as well as I have a bunch of different cameras. I can I have a Telestrator, so I can draw on my screen. I have a whiteboard. I can jump to different monitors and so on and so forth. So, but that's a hardware switcher. What you were seeing earlier was me switching to some close-up cameras. I've got about 4 or 5 cameras in here that I can get a hold of. So that's not what I was showing off. What we were doing earlier before the hour started was we were working with someone's camera settings, and so I was trying to get a close up of my cameras to kind of work through that. So, but those are all virtual cameras. That's what Manycam does, and it is newly, if you guys haven't seen it, it is newly available again inside of Zoom. Zoom did an update yesterday that has fixed many of the virtual cameras, although I'm still having trouble with Memo Live, but the other cameras seem to be showing up. Anyway, any other comments about? I guess that was my what I was doing on that end. Chris, go ahead. Next question.
Chris S wants to know if there's any streaming service that will go 80 plus hours, not just 80 hours, but 80 plus hours, and not kick you off. And if there's a piece or two of copyrighted content in the stream.
Oh, well, that's 2 different questions. I can tell you from experience that you can stream to YouTube forever. Like, I mean, not forever, but weeks, especially if you leave it on by accident. So I've done tests where I'm running some loop and we're testing it, and then I walk away for lunch and then I forget about it, and then the encoders are just sitting there. If you have hardware encoders, it's easy for them. They're just sitting in some server room throwing bits, and you've got a signal and you're just sending it to YouTube. And I think I've streamed to YouTube for weeks by accident, and into an event, like an unlisted event that I just forgot. So I know that you can, 80 hours is no big deal on YouTube. Obviously, private CDNs will let you do that. I think that, I can't remember if Facebook changed it, but for a long time, Facebook can do ambient, or whatever, which is a continuous stream. It just doesn't save it all. As far as copyright goes, it just depends on your platform. You have to be really careful with YouTube and Facebook because they'll shut you down pretty quick if you put in copyright material. And doesn't matter whether you paid for it or you signed any contracts. There's a CMS that has to be addressed by the copyright holder. So there's some little bits that people have to flip. If they don't flip those, you'll have an issue. So what you want to do is oftentimes play the videos that you think you're going to play into a show. You play them into unlisted, not private, because private isn't seen by the machine, but unlisted. and see if you see alerts, coming up with them. If you don't see alerts, then it may be on a system that isn't going to attack your show. Jeffrey.
I have a constant channel going on geekazine.com on my YouTube channel that's going through restream.io. Some of these services will only have a limited hour service, but Restream, if you have the right plan, you'll be able to do a constant stream as long as the stream is pumping through.
And you can put stills into Restream. I mean, it has its own little edit system, doesn't it?
It does have its own little edit system, but I'm using a dedicated computer that has a system on it that sends the content straight to Restream. And because this is actually the 2-year mark. I started at Memorial Day of 2 years ago, and it's been running constantly since then.
How much does Restream cost?
I don't have a price structure off the top of my head, but it's not too bad for you have the basic stream is to add 2 channels like Facebook and YouTube, but then they have a bigger plan that you can do multiple streams to Mixer and they also have RTMP links and sending out to other RTMP sources.
Oh, by the way, the one thing about to go back to copyright material and what you want to look for. One of the reasons that we really ask for footage when we're doing an event, we usually want the footage 72 hours ahead of time, and we push pretty hard for that. And the reason for that is do I get it in a format that I can play, and B, I need to test it for copyright and all the other things. And so there is a process to it, and you want to have enough time to make those fixes and make adjustments. So having people delivering, what you want to try to avoid is having people deliver content to you, an hour before the event, during the event, 6 hours before the event. Those are all things that are a great thing that you want to. But the way to explain it is there's a lot of infrastructure there to make sure that it's tested and you're going to have a solid event. Leeland and then Chris.
Yeah, just to touch on your comment, you mentioned CDNs, which not a lot of people may know the acronym for Content Delivery Network. Really, the only place you need to be careful of the copyright strikes is on places like social networks like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. When you have a pay service that you're allowing a player to come through from their end into a browser or any other location on your website as an embed code or what have you, you can pretty much stream whatever you want. So it's really a matter of where
you can stream whatever you want without something blocking it. You do expose yourself and your your client to significant lawsuits if someone decided they wanted to step down. So I think that I don't remember what the number is, but I think it's like $250,000 an infringement. So you just want to keep in mind that they're doing that to protect themselves and partially to protect you. So you want to kind of keep it in mind that you're not supposed to do that. and that you could get yourself into a bit of trouble if it scales. If 10 people are watching or 100 people watching, it probably doesn't matter. But if it gets bigger,
it's content. Stay away from copyrighted content and get something royalty free.
Yeah, and for opens, closes, beds, things like Logic, GarageBand are pretty useful because you can throw stuff together that doesn't hit any machines, and you can put it together really quickly if it's not something that needs to be a specific song. Go ahead, Chris.
You said you asked for stuff early so that you can test it for copyright. What are you doing? Are you just putting it on a phantom YouTube channel and seeing if it gets kicked in the next couple of days?
Yeah. Well, we don't look at it if it's getting kicked. What you want to be careful of is getting strikes. So yeah, we definitely have. I think it's harder now than it used to be. I think YouTube went back to requiring 1,000 subscribers before they would let you get a live stream. But for a long time, you could just build a new event and then start streaming with it, as long as it goes connected to a cell phone. And I don't know. I have 20 YouTube accounts.
And so less than that. I think it's only 100.
Oh, it's 100. Yeah. So it's but I did it when it wasn't required. So I have a lot of accounts that can stream, and I don't do it on my own accounts that I actually use, because if I get a bunch of strikes and you won't get a strike. If you're streaming, you have to watch it, because if it closes if you're streaming and it sees that copyright and it warns you, and then if it turns off your video, you're getting a strike for that. You get 3 strikes. And once you get 3 strikes, you're out for 6 months. Each strike takes 6 months to come off. At least that's how it was, the last time it happened to me. So anyway, that's the and you have to kind of wait it out. So you want to be careful about if you're going to do a test stream out, you do want to be careful of what that, of not getting the warning. So you want to watch it. You don't want to just like set it on and walk away. Philippe?
Yeah, there is one thing about the royalty-free Apple loops is that if another singer or musician has registered that song with those loops, somehow you get flagged, and every time you have to go there and dispute if you have been using, it's just a matter of matching 4 or 5 seconds, and then you get a dispute on that copyright. I get that all the time, and all the time I have to put there, I used Apple loops, please stop doing this.
Well, yeah, and the problem is that the tools aren't refined enough, because all that person's doing is putting their video up and saying this whole video and all of its content is mine, and so they're not doing, they're just and then the machine just hashes all of that and looks for those things. But yeah, I don't do a lot with, because of that. I usually layer my loops, to make sure that there's a couple things going on so that it's not a one-to-one match. Even if I don't want to just build you could build something that's just a base loop. I think I made the same mistake that you did, where I had an Mbira loop, I think, and I just let it play because I just wanted it in the background, and I didn't want anything more complicated. And it turned out that got picked up by YouTube. Yeah. Jason.
Alex, I think you said you had this problem too. I've actually received copyright flags for bars and tone, which is absurd. Talk about
bars and
algorithm.
Tone. So for those of you listening, bars and tone is it's just the bars, color bars, and you just hear a boo, and we use it to test signals all the time. And you'll get it from a whole bunch. It'll hit there's bars. There's the bars part, right? And you'll get a whole bunch of strikes against it if you play it. If you stream bars and tone, you will get 4 or 5 different copyright infringements. I believe that what it is that it is in a test signal that somebody put up and said I own, in either unlisted or listed, and it was just part of the beginning of a show or whatever.
And whoever they are more important than you, like CBS or CNN or something like that.
Right. And so we build our own bars and tone because of that, so that they don't match the ones that are there. So you can use a different signal, a slightly different tone, and slightly different structure for it. And oftentimes you can get around it, but it's been a problem for a decade. We're going to move on. Go ahead, Chris.
A. Mitchell's is looking for a arm that they can attach to a lighting stand, camera, tripod, whatever, that's more robust than a typical Magic arm. I think they're trying to hold more weight.
How heavy did he say?
It doesn't say. More robust. What's better than a Magic arm?
So I assume that what you want is something that's adjustable, that's better than a Magic arm. Like it's, because there's lots of,
another C stand.
Or another C stand or another C. The other thing that we get into is building. You can build some pretty interesting rigs with, multiple C stand arms. Where you basically you flip the knuckle and you put it in there, and then you hook another one to it. Now that's going to be a heavier.
Specifically,
it's big, and then
they're trying to reduce the number of stands on the floor.
Well, the way to reduce the number of stands on the floor is a grid. so and that's what I have here. I think we've discussed it earlier, but I have and mine isn't particularly complicated. Let's see if I can bring this up in a second here. So this is my very simple rig that I have here. And so that's made out of plumbing at the hardware store. I'm planning to change it at some point, but it's just connected to, connected to 4 C stands on the corners. And then they just lift everything up. So anything I want to touch, I still have a couple stands because it's plumbing. So I have to put some speed rail in there to make it better. But
you said 10. Is that 10? What does that mean? Yesterday when you talked about the pipe, what kind of pipe?
Speed rail.
No. I know. I love speed rail, but
plumbing.
Home Depot.
What's in there now is Home Depot is plumbing, and that's just plumbing.
It's 2 inch. 1 inch.
It's 1 inch. 1 inch plumbing. The problem if you build a grid with 1 inch plumbing is the threads, because if you want to build a grid and not have them just go all the way straight across, you're going in one side, but as you put it into the other side, you're loosening the first side. And so you have to put it in all the way and then halfway. And it's not a great solution for this. And that's why speed rail is better. So that's why I'm going to build a better rig with it. But the point is that I have a lot of stuff that I have hanging up there that I can just constantly be moving around and changing. And because I have it in a on C-stands, I can bring it down, work on it, and then push it back up again. So, and we've done that a lot. We put grids onto chains, you know, to a pulley system so that you can just lower the whole grid, build everything, and then pull it all back up into the ceiling. If you're going to get serious about something, I mean, obviously if you're setting up, that's one thing, but if you're going to get serious about something in a space and you want to have kind of an open way to do it, it's infinitely easier to put a grid up than it is to use a bunch of arms. Jeffrey and then Guy.
So it did, the question didn't say if this was going to be for a permanent situation or for a on location shoot. So if any type of on location shoot, then probably the easiest thing would be to take 2 tripods and then put a crossbar between those tripods.
Yep.
And then you have the distance that you're looking for plus the weight.
And we would typically use C-stands for that. I mean, same thing, goalpost, the C-stands, but goalpost, usually for us, a piece of speed rail between two, either, depending on how much weight you're putting on it, is you can have it C-stands, you can put junior stands, which are bigger. And then if you're going to put a lot of weight on it, I'll see while Guy answers, I'll see if I can find an example.
Yeah, well, strolling around at Cinegear, I ran into these guys called Triad Orbit. I'll put the link in the chat, but this stuff is crazy strong. So here you can see I have like this exercise piece of equipment. There's 2 pieces. This is holding up a huge backlight at a crazy angle, and it's meant mostly for the musicians, the music MI industry. To hold mics, heavy mics. These guys on their website have some crazy stuff. I suggest going and looking at their Instagram too to see how end users are using this stuff. But this is just really robust, and then it's quick disconnects too. So that piece right there, you can actually just quick disconnect and pull it right off. So if you're swapping out different lights, mics, cameras, you can swap it super fast. So Triad orbits that stuff.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
This is I'm gonna have to screen share here. I apologize to everybody, but I don't have it easily.
We shamed Guy and his Christmas lights though.
So here's another example of you guys can see that. So this is a set of junior stands with a lot of lights, and we just used some truss right here and attached them to the junior stands and then crank them up. These larger ones will have, a crank on them, so we can just crank, 2 people relatively in unison crank. You build it all low, and then you crank it all the way up to the top. And so it's a great way to kind of hoist a lot of stuff up there. And it may seem like a lot of work to put a grid in or do a goalpost or whatever, but it's a lot less work. As Jeffrey pointed out, it's a lot less work to just, once you do that, you've got kind of a structure that you can kind of work with to make that work. Stephen, Jason, and then Stephen.
So like you don't actually have to go that hardcore, if you don't like that idea. This is what's in front of me right now, and it's pretty stinking simple. It's just 2 things connected to the desk and then a tripod extension with small rig, and it works beautifully.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to rigging as a whole. I want to get Brent on here sometime. Not Brent Schnarr, but Brent By to talk about rigging, because he's the master of most of our rigs. Mickey.
Yeah, for something very simple, Cardellini and a Maffer clamp and an extra grip arm.
Yeah, I don't have a Cardellini right. I have a bunch of this stuff hanging from Cardellini's, but I don't have one with me. But I have Mafers and Cardellini's. These are just clamps. Cardellini's kind of wide. And the Mayfair is kind of a clamp, but you can clamp it onto a lot of different things. Poles and Cardellini's, because they just kind of come in from the side. You can clamp them to almost anything you can get your teeth onto. Just remember that they will, if you put a bunch of weight on them, they're going to leave a mark. So if you do them in a house, you just have to think about padding there we go. That's a Cardellini. And then that's just going to give you a baby pin. So you can clamp that onto something. It can be onto a pipe or whatever, and then you can just simply attach those other pieces there. So, okay. So, and then the next question, we're going to move on.
the best way to set up your camera and monitor to keep your eye line on the camera while being able to see the monitor, view the monitor, is a teleprompter the only optimal solution? We've seen a lot of these in the show.
Yeah, I
what's
mean,
your opinion?
I think that getting the camera as close to the, as close to the eye line as possible is the first step. But a teleprompter is the easiest one to, not the easiest, it's more expensive. You can get inexpensive ones that just use an iPad. And I think, Philippe, you're using the iPad rig. Which one are you using? Nope. Okay. So Philippe is using one that is an iPad that just hooks in. So that's relatively inexpensive as long as you have an iPad. I have a little iCan one that I'm using right now that's about 15-inch. That I can basically mirror my screen, or I have it as a second monitor and I put other things out there. So there's a couple different options there to get that straight on view. Otherwise, you just really want to try to get that camera as close to what you're looking at. One of the things that I tend not to do is I tend not to have my screen as big as it could be. I tend to have it's easy to make it like do a full screen if you're doing Zoom, but then when people at the bottom are talking, you're gonna look down like this because you're looking at the bottom of the screen, and that's gonna move your eye line away. So if I'm definitely, when I'm talking to one person, I tend to pull a single image or even a small group always towards my web camera or towards my camera to make sure that I'm getting a better eye line as it goes. Jason?
Something I saw on lynda.com, which actually makes a lot of sense to me in retrospect, is if you put the zoom window all the way up, shrink it down and put it all the way up, and essentially you don't stare. Don't
right,
yeah.
Yeah,
But
I mean, exactly what, yeah.
Go ahead.
What I was just saying, exactly that you just take the whole window and pull it up so that you can see it. Pull it toward, everything you want to do is pull it towards where you're looking. That's kind of the key to the operation there. Next question.
We're all dying to know, Phil, Leeland, Michael,
Yes.
how did the wedding go?
How did it go?
Oh,
Are you
great.
guys?
Yeah.
That's a question from the list.
We'll just take a minute here and just give a recap if that's, I don't want
Yes,
to
please do. Please
stop
do.
the momentum you got. Yeah,
Nope,
it was
nope.
great. And the bride
Give us a
and groom-
little for the folks that are coming in that haven't heard it. Give us like the 2-minute overview
Okay.
of what it was.
Yeah, so we started, me and a couple other folks started a company called iDoTV, iDoTV.com, and it's virtual weddings, and we're marketing it as much more beautiful weddings than a standard Zoom wedding. So there's a lot of Zoom weddings happening, but as we all know, you got to be in a little box and be happy with that. So we're really pushing the format and the design of the production value. For a lot of brides, that's a really, really important thing. So the ability to do lots more than Zoom. So what we're doing essentially behind the scenes is Leeland and I, we've engineered a system where we're able to do bring in a Zoom meeting and 8 V calls and other things coming in, and so it's really beautiful. So that said, we did our really first official wedding this weekend, although we've done some practices before that. And bride and groom was in Rochester. Mike went over to, he's from Syracuse, and he went over and was our on-site solo technician, did a yeoman's job because he had his hands full. It was probably more than one guy ought to be doing, but we have certain constraints. One is budget, two is social distancing, and a lot of those kind of issues that we're dealing with. So he's running 3 cameras and a mixing board and all kinds of wireless and just a ton of stuff, streaming back a single feed because the bandwidth on location was very, very narrow. So it was a single feed coming back to Leeland in Detroit, who then took that into his vMix and mixed all the other pieces to it. So actually, I'll just show on my screen. This is just some of the screen grabs from the wedding. We kept it pretty simple in terms of box design on this one because we didn't have. Typically, we might have bridesmaids and groomsmen and mother of the bride and everything in different V-call boxes. We didn't really have that in this case, so we we kept a big full screen there, and then from time to time we'd bring in the Zoom call, and so these are a lot of the attendees looking in, and it was a beautiful day. We really lucked out with the weather. This is someone doing a reading from remote. That's actually my wife doing the reading from the remote location. So it was a very nice event. We had mixture of lives, and so you know, it was a lot going on, as you can imagine. No camera operators, so all the cameras had to be in fixed position. We really had to kind of rehearse where everyone was going to be standing, because Mike was actually running sort of the board and switcher and stuff. He was doing a pre-switch going to Leeland, and then we also had a remote DJ wedding host who would cut in and sort of do what sort of Alex does, prompting people to pin their screen, prompting people to mute. Oh my gosh, that was the biggest issue, and we can dig deep on that. But the point was, and then afterwards, the bride and groom came over to a station we had set up where they actually interacted with folks on Zoom from the live location, and so we had folks from all over the world, Australia and everywhere joining in, and able, basically it made it able to have a really fun event that they wouldn't have normally been able to have. And it was really beautiful, and Leeland and Mike did an awesome job. It was really fun. A couple of the quick hiccups that I would love to dig in at some point. Remote directing is, oh my gosh, because I directed them through their whole rehearsal, and I'm sitting there telling them where to stand, and the audio and the communication of that is a nightmare when you're dealing with 20 people who aren't used to being directed, and everybody's chattering and everybody's excited about a wedding and so forth. And so that was trick. Really would have loved to have had a really strong stage manager there. Unity-Com was pretty good. We used Unity-Coms on the back end. The DJ, Leeland, Mike, and everyone was on Unity-Com. I actually had a quick issue where at one point early on, I was like yelling at people because nobody was listening to me, and I realized my app had frozen on my phone. And so it was like, oh my gosh, and I wasted 30 seconds of screaming into a phone that nobody heard me, so I had to reboot my phone app. And then we had another issue later on where it sucked up a lot of battery and somebody's Unity died, and oh my gosh, that caused, you know, a domino effect. And then the Zoom audio was a real trick because we're trying to layer in some music, some background music while people are talking, and then have them be able to live reinforcement on site of that. And it was asking a lot of Zoom, and there's probably a better way to do that. And I'd love to, you know, dig in on that, you know, but all in all, you know, it was a learning experience for sure. We learned a heck of a lot. And like I said, Leeland and Mike were awesome, and I'm sure they've got their own war stories we could dig in at some point. But it was a fun experience. Yeah.
Is there anything that
working with you?
Is there any big? So the big things are the comms are still a little bit of a challenge.
Comms are huge. Yeah.
I mean, I think that some kind of high quality, low latency stream that's not in Zoom to return the audio might make sense if you have someone on the ground. Like, hey, open up this little window and you can listen to it. And then you're streaming it to it rather than using Zoom, at least for now.
So the scenario was that we were sitting there, like Mike had some PA gear there, and I wanted to, like during the rehearsal, I'm sitting here, and actually at that point, I think I'm in Zoom and telling them what to do. But during rehearsal, there's a lot of back and forth. They're asking questions, I'm answering, they're asking questions, and the way it was set up, Mike had to actually sit there and toggle audio so that we wouldn't get feedback on them every single time. So it was sort of as much of a live reinforcement issue as it was a Zoom issue, right? Because we needed them to hear me, I needed to hear them, but I was talking to them on Zoom, and they didn't all have earpieces, you know, they didn't all have headphones.
And that gets into some of the issues that Brian was talking about yesterday with, you know, using auto mixing. So using a Dugan auto mix or something like that, where when you're talking, it presses their mics down. When they're talking, it's pressing your mic down, and that can help. You know, that's what we use. You're absolutely right. The echo is a big deal in a lot of those.
Yeah, sort of creating a kind of a mix minus or an auto mix situation.
Well, it's a mix minus, but it's really making sure that
does that work when there's even more latency, like in a Zoom situation?
Yeah, it'll work. Yeah, I mean that's that's what we've had to do.
It wasn't so much the mix minus of the fact that the only open monitor we had was what was close to, it was kind of close to the mics. If we could have had some air on the speakers away from the mics further,
separating
we probably would have been fine.
And again,
it was just rolling in is all.
It's still that, either someone's riding a slider or, and it's very mechanical, or you're having, you need to have, it's not so much the speakers in the air or mix minus as much as auto mixing that mix mic,
Right.
really pushing those mics down when the other person's talking. Brian, you wanted to add something there?
Yeah, I mean, and to talk, Phil, to your question about, does that still work with the latency? As far as the auto mixer locally in the place is concerned, it doesn't hear latency. All it's really doing is, here's the sound coming from the speaker.
Right, I understand. Yeah.
Sound coming from the speaker, I'm going to turn down the microphone. So Phil's talking and the microphone goes down, and Phil stops talking and they talk.
Right.
Right.
But we also need to toggle, it seems like the sound reinforcement on site as well, because otherwise you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah,
going
what we really needed was a second source of audio.
Yeah.
Not in Zoom, probably
Right.
Unity Com, going into the reinforcement
Right.
mixer, and then letting Phil be on headphones or earbuds so that he's not having feedback at his end.
But to be clear, we've done the auto mix with Hangouts mostly, not as much with Zoom, and with the audio coming down Hangouts, talking to a room with 100 speakers and 1,500 people, and it works perfectly.
Right.
So it's just so you know that it's out there. Like the answer is out there waiting for you. It does work. You just need something that's going to be able to do that auto mix.
plug-in. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a X32, kind of thing.
When I have an X32 rack, I would just need to get the Waves card for it and then buy the plug-in.
And that's the challenge, really.
It's built in. It's built into X32. Like all you got to do is
there are 8 channels of it in the X32. You're right. Yeah.
Yep.
The sort of the big picture is like there are answers to all of these, and it could be more equipment, more gear, more personnel, and those are all things we're trying to cut back on. So this is not necessarily, if this were an Alex production, I'd absolutely know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The big thing is that we just it's not so much that that's why I'm saying X32 and not Yamaha QL1.
Right.
But you need something. You might even be able to do the auto mix with like a mix pre. I mean, I don't. It's possible. Something smaller.
I own the X32 rack, so that's not a problem.
So anyway, but
I use the iPad to mix so I can walk around.
The point is that what I see a lot of. I mean, what I will, and we'll move on after this. But a lot of times you're trying to miniaturize those things, but if you don't miniaturize them well, you end up with people who don't have a great experience, and that doesn't, and in the wedding world, everything is about someone telling them about how great their experience was, or it's the bridesmaids. I mean, I DJ'd weddings for a long time, and 400 of them. By the second year, almost all the work that came was from people in the wedding party getting married. It's just a chain reaction of this is a great experience. And so having all that stuff be clean. And so the thing is that you do want to miniaturize things, but you don't want to miniaturize them to the point where you lose stability. And so and that's what you always have to be you're always weighing is how small, because I have a bad habit of showing up too heavy, and then people go, oh, that was really complicated. So I agree with you that you have to miniaturize it, but you also want to always keep in mind that it does have to actually work.
Absolutely.
And that's the challenge there. Anyway, so next question.
Dan Sweeney wants to know, can you suggest a USB headset with a broader frequency response on the mic side?
This has been a common question that we don't have an answer to. Not a common question here, but for us.
Shall we move on?
No, let me think. I was just going to show, the solution that we've had for a lot of headsets has been to send it with like an X2U, the little Shure X2U that converts XLR to USB. So you just send the mic with a little dongle, and then it all works. There it is. That's the X2U. And so that is how we convert just good headset mics to to what you need. And that's been, our solution for specifically USB headsets mics, because I don't know of any that have a really good response. They're all kind of okay. They're not, I don't think any of them are great. You tend to lose a lot on the low and the high. They're built for, gaming and, things that people want to make sure it's very intelligible, but doesn't sound good. Dan, have you found anything, or that's probably why the question, but is there anything you're happy with or even close to happy with?
No, definitely not a loaded question. I don't have the answer. It was more that I got the feedback that this one is no good. And I guess I don't have the knowledge to know whether it's this, which I assume it is, or somewhere along the chain. Perhaps it's somewhere else. I'm assuming this unit is probably stepping it down to just a voice range potentially.
Maybe, but yours is right down the middle. So you've got a high pass and a low pass going on there. So you're getting, I don't know exactly what the the range is, but it's not very much. But the easiest way to do that would be to get, in my opinion, again, would be to have a small USB, to a USB to XLR interface, and then you can get whatever mic you want. But yeah, I've had some conversations with manufacturers about there's a huge market between really low and really high that isn't being served. Like there's this, that we have a whole bunch of web camera, and I think that the good news is I think this is going to expand pretty quickly. So over this next 2 years, what we're going to see is probably this explosion of this kind of upper like prosumer range of microphones, of cameras, that type of thing. Because I mean, if you look at they're sold out right now. You can't even buy these are pretty good as far as cameras go. These Logitech stream cams, but you can't buy them because they're under such demand. And so, but I think that you could even go a little higher, like the Brio for the cameras. But I think we're going to see the same thing for mics, where you spend a little bit more on them, but they sound a lot better. I think Plantronics makes a relatively good USB mic that I think Leo has sent out to people, but I can't remember the name of it. But you're also competing right now with a bunch of folks with regular mics. So like when we're doing mic checks and you're going through it, you have probably at least half, if not more, of the folks here have a true mic that is plugged into it. Now the other, for headset, or if they're using a headset, so that's more. But I would suggest converting to a XLR and then getting something really good. Next question.
In the macOS, is there a way to mute the audio for the entire Zoom call while leaving audio active for other applications? And Alex, you and I were talking about me showing audio hijack. You can certainly do that in that.
Sure. And I guess this is not using the mute button.
Well, they want to mute all the audio coming from Zoom. This is Kenny Hampton. While leaving audio active for other applications. They just want to mute one app.
Is that easy for you to show an audio hijack?
Yeah, I could probably. I'd have to share screen.
Yishai, go ahead and then.
Okay, a good friend at Rogo Amoeba, which is audio hijack, have a special program for that. It's called Sound Sources, and I'll put it on the chat. And it does. You see all your audio sources, and you can mute, unmute, lower. It's like Mixer on steroids. So you guys should check it. I put it in the chat.
Those Rogue Amiga guys. We were going to show you a Rogue Amiga product, and we instead showed you a different Rogue Amiga product.
Different one,
exactly. So that sounds. What's funny is I didn't look at it fast enough. I was looking at getting Loopback and a couple of the other ones and Audio Hijack, and I was on their site, and I saw the sound sources, and I thought until you said that, I thought to myself, I don't know what I'd use that for.
I just want to shout out to Rogue Amoeba.
Yeah, like it.
For having the greatest company name in the world. Rogue Amoeba is fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely. Beju, did you have another addition?
Yeah, it was just that sound source for the basic stuff. If you just want to do very basic, and Loopback if you want to do more complicated chains, then you can also mix that with Audio Hijack to do something really, really crazy at times.
Yeah, and what I'm doing with Audio Hijack is building.
You're breaking up a little, Beju. Go ahead, Chris.
What I'm doing in Audio Hijack is building whole audio chains. And what you can do is you can build multiple ones that are doing multiple things simultaneously. And that's how I kind of solve my problems.
There's an hour of Audio Hijack, I think, coming. Because it's just
gladly do it if you're interested.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
George Kennedy.
Chris,
Just a simple answer. Just change your sound device for your speaker on Zoom to a device you're not monitoring, and that will avoid the sound on Zoom, and you can have access to others.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Like
That's
a
good
true
one.
Windows user.
No, but that's a good. No, but it totally works. And I was going to put that one in for Mac or PC. George.
Yeah, this is real quickly. I'm definitely gonna chime in with Chris and those guys. I'm pretty much using Audio Hijack and Loopback right now for my PR40 and Xperia, and it's working out pretty great. Some really cool stuff in it.
Great. Okay, next question.
Next question. Squadcast has a 4-person limit. Zencaster has an intermittent drift problem. Is there a software or hardware solution to record audio from 5 people, excuse me, in remote locations, like podcasting?
Well, so the way I've always done it, I haven't used. I've been on podcasts that use Squadcast. I have, when I do my own podcast, I believe that the same folks that make Ecamm have another piece of software that will let you basically record the remote, but you also can record a local copy. But what the big thing is that whatever I do is what I'm trying to figure out, you generally do is do what we call a double end. So you want everybody to record remotely at the same time as you record it. You want the whole show recorded, but you want each person's track recorded as well. And so there's a bunch of tools. You just want to find a tool that will share the audio, and that might on both ends, and have them record locally. Johnny Estilla said cleanfeed.net, which I haven't used. But yeah, that's what you want to do is double end it in some way. You want to figure out a way that everyone podcasting is going to be recording locally, and then you're recording that. That way you can recut it. You always want to get those sources. So yeah, Philippe.
Yeah, you can use Discord. Discord has a bot called Craig, and Craig records ISO of every participant and a mix down, and then you can export all of that, and everyone can have their hands on it.
Discord.
Beautiful.
So what is it called again?
The name of the bot is Craig.
Craig will save all of your ISOs. Sky.
When are we having a 101 Discord? Because that sucker just keeps getting deeper by the second, and I can't keep up.
Okay, we'll work on. We'll look for an hour, or we'll do something. I can't do it today, but
no.
we'll definitely.
Because I don't do gaming, because when I came into computers, gaming Amiga was about it, and people kept thinking, "Oh, you're playing video games." No, damn it! I mean, sorry, no, I'm working.
Yeah. So it's anyway. So yeah, we'll do some more about more about Discord. Go ahead, Chris. Next question.
Is there a way to get NDI in and out in Manycam? Has virtual cameras, but is there a way to get NDI in and out of Manycam?
What's what is Manycam?
He means Manycam.
Manycam.
Oh, Manycam.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't think they have NDI yet, do they, John?
I don't think so.
Yeah, Mimo Live has.
Isn't it Wi-Fi?
Manycam's just software. I mean, it's just software that does the kit, that does the switching.
Oh, that's right. It's the webcam app.
Yeah, so I think that I don't know if Manycam has that. I know Mimo Live does an NDI output, but I haven't tried to do that. Manycam, I've been mostly using it as a virtual camera service, so I don't know for sure. Anyway, go ahead, Chris. Next question.
This will be easy. Can I get the ATEM Mini Pro to stream to multiple streaming platforms at once? Yes.
Restream.io.
Yeah.
Next question.
Next question. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. The way to do that is you stream it to Restream.io, and then you can redistribute it to wherever you need it to go. But that'd be the way you would do that. It can't do it on its own, but you can do it through Restream. Yeah, there you go.
Next question. For the wedding.
By the way, one thing that we're going to talk a little bit more about as I continue to play with the link is we are going to talk about kind of setting up your own streaming in the cloud, in AWS cloud. And the reason for that is if you're streaming a ton of things, then Restream might be a better solution for you. But if you're streaming every once in a while, at $1 per hour per output, you may find that if you're a little geeky, you can save money by just using AWS as opposed to, or the Elemental Cloud or whatever, as opposed to paying $150 a month or $100 a month or whatever it is to, to get to different things. You may be, so we're going to talk a little bit about how to set that up for those of you who want to be a little geekier, and save a couple dollars. But Restream is the easy turnkey way to do that. Go ahead, Chris.
Next question. And I'm curious too, for you guys doing the wedding, how did you get your internet feed from your wedding?
Yes.
Hotspot, Ethernet? What'd you do?
Just quickly, we insisted on an Ethernet, just like, following Alex's 10 commandments here. It's definitely a Ethernet. Now, the problem was we only had 90 up. I'm sorry, 10 up from the wedding site. We had 90 down, 10 up. So we originally wanted to have all 3 cameras be ISO'd back to Leeland so that he could do all the switching and we could get a little fancier with that. But with 10 up, there was no way we were going to get 3 video streams back with any sort of quality. So we just said that's why Mike had to do the pre-mix on site of the 3 cameras, and then Leeland did the rest from there.
Yeah, and and one of the things to note is that I think we're going to see a lot of event locations get really good internet pretty quickly because you're not really, as an event location, as it starts to pick up speed, you're not going to be competitive, without it. Next question.
One more question about the wedding. What did the client actually receive? Like at the end, do you give them a video?
We're gonna give them a full stream of the wedding, a link that they can have. I'll probably compress it down so it's not 4 gigabytes, and then we're gonna give them a little edit down version as well. It'll cut down music 3-minute thing that they can share with friends and family.
All right, next question.
Can anyone recommend a PTZ or PTZ capable small format 4K camera that works very well in low light?
Well, I'll tell you the
AX53 will do it pretty well, the FDR AX53, but it's not PTZ.
Yeah, I mean, the 1-inch chips are better now. So the Sony and the Panasonic, the 150 and the BRC 1000 are both better in low light than the last versions because they're a significantly larger chip, and they're both 4K. I'll give you the ultimate, just in case you're wondering what the ultimate PTZ low light is. This is not contained. We're not constrained by cost here. So I'm just telling you, if you have to have a great PTZ with incredible low light, you would get a Canon. I believe it's the ME20. So get a Canon ME20 and put it on a telemetrics head with a Fujinon lens that has a motor head on it, or motor
Coolest demo
lens.
I've ever seen from Canon.
So now, what I will admit is what I just quoted to you is about a $60,000 solution to the problem. So I'm not saying you might want to rent it. That's all I'm telling you. So the ME20 is it's $20,000, but it has an ISO of 4 million. It will see things that you can't see. So there's there's that, and then the telemetrics head's about 10 grand. The controller for the telemetrics head's another 5 grand, and the Fujinon lens, depending on what you get, is anywhere from $13,000 to $30,000. So I'm just telling you that if you're looking for it, we didn't say like I'm looking for this in a certain price range.
It did say very, very, very good quality. Yeah.
So that is very, very, now that's only, it's not 4K. Sorry. The ME20 does not fulfill that because the reason that the low light works so well is that it's a full frame sensor that's only 1080p. So that each sensor site is, I think, 7 times bigger than normal or whatever. So it radically reduces the errata of the sensor. And it's, anyway, if you've ever, I owned the ME200s because I was too cheap to buy the ME20 because the ME200s are still 5,000 each, but they got to only 1 million ISO. But we took them into low light events. If an event went somewhere we didn't know what the client was going to be like or what the location was, we knew that we could make it make it work. So anyway, but otherwise the 150 and the BRC, the Panasonic 150 and the BRC 1000 are pretty good for 4K and relatively good at low light. You really have to get something almost specialized to get really good low light. Anyway, next question.
So you can see into the future. That's what you're saying?
I can't.
Oh, okay.
I try. Yeah.
One more option at the $7,995 mark, which is a little less, is the Bird Dog. It's not shipping yet, but this is a full NDI camera.
It looks really good, and it's got the 1-inch sensor. The only thing we've learned with Bird Dog is they're kind of in the earlier Black Magic thing before Black Magic. Is you kind of want to let other people buy it first and let them gamma test it for you, because usually the first round of Bird Dog is not the most stable version that they will make. Go ahead, Jan.
Going the opposite way completely at $29.95. Wyze, WYZE.com. I was listening to Mac Geek Gab, and if you're looking for a high quality, really inexpensive camera, they make a pan and tilt camera, PC. It's 1080p. It's not 4K, but it's got 8x digital zoom, 1920 by 1080, and it's $29.95, and they're available.
We'll have to test it. We'll have to test it. Bill Davis.
Yeah, I wonder if the Sony, is it the A1? I mean, those are notoriously great in low light. They have like ISO 10,000 possible. I wonder if you could just hook that into something and make it work at a cheaper price point.
Yeah, you can definitely. I mean, they're good at low light. The A7R, or sorry, the A7S. Whichever one that you're doing there has good low light. It's not anywhere near the Canons, but it's definitely less expensive than the Canons and looks amazing. I mean, it just has a really good look to it. Next question. I think we're almost down to our last ones here.
Yeah, we're down to the last couple, and I'm going to give you both of these and let you decide what you want to go to. William Aravalo, sorry, not a technical question, but how does your Telestrater work? I'm paraphrasing. And then Ernest Floyd wants to know about focus targets. Should he get one, and if so, which one? Which way do you want to go? We're kind of running out of time.
I'll do them both really quickly, and then we'll jump into the next one. So my Telestrater is a downstream key inside of. So this is just a. Let's see if I can explain this. This is. So this is a. Going in. So what happens is that I'm feeding this video out. This is a Wacom tablet, a Cintiq, and I'm feeding a video out of my switcher into this. This goes through a decimator. The decimator converts the SDI to HDMI, and it comes in here. So it thinks it's looking at a computer, but it's really looking at the switcher. Then what I draw on it, the USB connection to this goes to a Mac Mini. That's just a white screen that I developed. So it's a really simple application that just doesn't have any interface. And so then you draw on it. What the Mac Mini is then sending to the switcher is just black and white. And because of that round trip, you can, and then the color itself is being generated by the whatever color fill that I use within the switcher. And so there's a button, Command C makes it clear. And then I attach that to all the buttons so that I can always clear my screen as I'm working. So that's the Telestrater. What was the other one?
The other one was a focus target, but before you go to focus target, did you just say it was just an application you just wrote real quick?
I didn't write it. I developed it. I spec'd it out and handed it off to a really smart friend of mine who wrote it in a weekend.
Is this available to the common man somewhere in the world?
Not yet.
So this was a worthless answer is what you're saying.
Well,
you cannot use this information.
Okay. I'll make it. I'll make the app.
Let's just put it somewhere on. Well, I'll leave you alone.
All right. I'll get it. I'll get it on the App Store. We'll put it up for $4.99. It'll just be called Stupid Whiteboard. We'll call it'll just be Stupid Whiteboard, because it literally just does what you need it to do a whiteboard. Like, it doesn't do anything else. There's some keystrokes to make the line thicker and keystrokes to make it softer. And then it's literally only built for doing telestrating. I'll see if I can click.
I dare you to market a product called Stupid Whiteboard.
You should make it $700, but then give us free passes.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And then the last thing. I forgot.
Focus target.
The ones I like are the the ASCs. Is it ASC? I don't know. My brain is not fully operational this morning. The same folks that make the Dumont chart.
Chris Summers is showing off kit. Panavision.
Oh yeah. You can print those like in a pinch. DSC, yeah, DSC Lab, not ASC. That's Americans. Anyway, so DSC Labs makes a lot of charts. I mean, that's where almost all the charts I use are DSC Labs. They make my color charts, my Chroma Dumont chart, but they also make a ton of focus charts. You can buy them. The color charts are important. The focus charts you can print. I mean, I've made them. You can. If you really want to test them, to test a lens very specifically, there are a lot of things in the focus chart that are calibrated that make it easier. But as far as am I in focus, and the big reason that we use focus charts, that I use them, the number one reason is to do back focus. So when you're putting a separate lens onto your computer, you can have front focus, but you can also have back focus. And back focus is you basically focus to a known depth, a known length. So typically it's 10 feet. You measure it. I'm exactly 10 feet, and there's a little symbol on the side where your sensor is. I'm exactly 10 feet from there, and then I'm going to set my lens to 10 feet, and then I'm going to adjust the back focus in the back so it's there. That way when it's calibrated, now you can zoom in and out, and everything will stay in focus. And I ran out of time. I ran over. So anyway, so now we're going to shift gears. If it's not related to Brian's talk, then let's go ahead and clear it from the Q&A. Anyway, so our second hour is starting 2 minutes late. Sorry about that. We are going to now talk to Brian Maddox. Brian Maddox has been working with Unity Connect, which is different than Unity Comms. Same engine, different product. And he is kind of been working out the process of remote production. And I decided, since it's right in his head because he's working on it, that we get him in here and have him talk to and answer all your questions and question all your answers. So go ahead, Brian, take it away.
We're still live on YouTube.
And then, Mickey, can you kill the YouTube link?